Hello everybody, and welcome back to the OMB Report. We'll look at the news in both a critical and a cynical fashion. Before starting today's video, I wanted to first start off by letting everyone know that YouTube has given this channel an official warning. Basically, it's the first step towards getting a strike, and if a strike were given to the channel, it would mean I would not be allowed to upload, to post anything in the community tab, and essentially not be able to communicate with anyone that is still watching on this platform, which is why it's more important than ever before that everyone, if you have not done so already, go and follow me over on the Odyssey platform. Again, the Odyssey platform is really honestly fantastic. They are free speech oriented, they are crypto oriented as well, and it is just a really cool and growing platform. And so right now, I have 160 followers over there. So again, shout out to all of my followers over on Odyssey. But if you would like to continue to support the work that I do here, if you would like to make sure that you get notified anytime a new video goes live, obviously I do one every, try and do one every day, but typically it's going to be every 2 or 3 days because of my crazy schedule. But if you do want to support the channel, please consider joining me over on Odyssey. And of course, you can follow me over on minds.com and Gab, though Gab apparently is down, and it's now actually being reported by mainstream media outlets that Gab, that they don't really know why. They've been trying to reach out to people to get understandings of what's going on, but as you can see, this internal error keeps popping up. It could be very simple. It could be that the servers are just down, a technical issue or error, but the other weird thing is that apparently the Gab Twitter account is also down as well, so a lot of stuff going on there. But once again, I'm over at minds.com, at Odin's Movie Blog, and of course the OMB Report over on Odyssey. So the big news, of course, of this past week is the passing of Rush Limbaugh. Now, I'm not someone that really listened to Rush Limbaugh a whole lot. I've listened to his show on occasion. I've never listened to an entire episode. It was one of those shows where typically if I was driving to work, to and from work, typically over the summer when I would do my summer camp job, he would be on at some point, and so typically I would just have him on. I would just listen to what he had to say, and sometimes I agreed with what he had to say, other times I didn't really fully agree with what he had to say, but he, in the long run, and no matter which way you feel about him, no matter where you fall politically, he was synonymous with talk radio. And I don't think anyone in their right mind could possibly say that Rush Limbaugh was not incredibly important. In fact, really honestly, is the reason why we have such a wide, broad variety of, not even just a variety, but a broad, coalition of conservative voices on radio. And I would even argue to say that the reason why we even have podcasting and why podcasting is even a thing is because of the impact of Rush Limbaugh. Now, was he the only person who had an impact? No. But if you're going to honestly tell me that radio does not owe a huge debt of gratitude to Rush, seeing that he was the one that kept radio alive, I mean, keep in mind that radio as a medium has no reason really to exist at this point. The only people that typically would listen to radio would people that are on the road a lot, where they're having to keep things on. And obviously podcasting has kind of taken in some of the space there, but Rush still had millions and millions of listeners on a daily basis and paved the way for other conservative voices as well. And I think would have paved the way for even more liberal or centrist voices, but they just never were able to get a following. But yeah, it's one of those things where obviously, my heart goes out to him for the repose of his soul, and obviously goes out to his family as well. And what's been interesting, of course, is to see how there have been very different perspectives about his death. Obviously, there's been a lot of people, I would say most people, who on both sides, who have been very, I think, gracious towards him. Even though they might disagree with what he had to say, disagree with his political philosophy, they still recognize that he was human, that he struggled and suffered through cancer, and no one who's ever gone through it or who's ever seen someone go through cancer, I think, would ever wish it upon anyone else. And so I think that a lot of us are able to, at the very least, be able to appreciate that he was still human, that obviously he was flawed, but he was still human nonetheless. And because especially of his impact on the world of talk radio, and by extension, just the world of broadcasting media in general, is worthy, I think, of a moment of respect and a moment of, I think, prayer and love and affection, which is why it really honestly becomes just very frustrating to see stories like this. So this is from Breitbart, which I know is not a news certified source, but this is something that really hits home to me because, as you all know, my wife and I recently, over the last, it's been over a year now, year and a half, we've been in the Chattanooga area. And so this is very close to me because, as I've always been a major proponent of on this channel, I think that local races, local elections have major impacts. And so I've always been very, very big on pushing for people getting involved in their local elections. We have a bunch of local elections going on right here in the Chattanooga area, one of which is for the Chattanooga mayor position. And this really frustrates me because not only have I seen this guy's posters all around the city, but also the fact that he actually said these words on Facebook and social media and then tried to cover it up after the fact is just downright despicable. So as it says here, Chattanooga, Tennessee mayoral candidate Tim Kelly mocks the death of Rush Limbaugh. And again, I don't care whether you agree with Rush Limbaugh or not. To mock someone who has just died after struggling with a battle with cancer, who has family that misses him, who has friends that miss him, and again, the man is no longer here. The man has died. To mock that, to make fun of that, is just downright despicable. It was despicable when there were indeed some conservatives who mocked the death of RBG. It was despicable then, and it's despicable now. And the fact that this is happening with a mayoral candidate has, one, solidified that I will not be voting for this dude. But also, two, if I ever talk to anyone about this race, I will say, yeah, don't vote for this guy. He mocks people who die. Because that's exactly what he has done here. So anyway, from this report from Breitbart, it says, in a now deleted Facebook post, Kelly suggested that he, quote, took great pleasure, end quote, in hearing the news that Limbaugh lost his year-long battle with lung cancer on Wednesday. The Chattanooga mayoral candidate commented on a Facebook post by a Chattanooga resident, sharing an image that featured a, quote, commonly misattributed to Mark Twain, which read, quote, I have never wished a man dead, but I have read some obituaries with great pleasure. That is sick for someone, not even just a mayoral candidate, but for any person, for any human being to post something like that. It is just downright despicable. It goes on to say, before Kelly deleted the post, the Tennessee conservative news outlet took a screenshot of the image and posted it to their website. And so actually I kind of want to see what's going on right here to see what that actual, boom, right there it is right there. Rush Limbaugh died. There it says, I can do all things through spite, which strengthens me. And then you see there that Tim Kelly is a part of that, likes cross-stitching, poking fun at Limbaugh's death. You then have here the image, Tim Kelly posting about the great pleasure. Again, sick and disgusting that any person would ever say anything like that. It goes on to say the mayoral candidate has since apologized for his post, stating that he regrets, quote, that this caused a distraction from the important issues facing Chattanoogans, end quote. So you're sorry because it got you in trouble with the conservatives in the area, and you know that you probably just lost their votes. And so instead of you apologizing from your heart, pointing out that what you did was disgusting and despicable, you say, oh, it distracted away from the important issues. I hate that political answer. We see that political answer all the time, right? When it's a half apology, when it's a half response, and it's ridiculous. It goes on, quote, I recently shared a quote in a social media thread, which I quickly deleted. Quote, weighing in on that day was insensitive, and I should not have done it. I believe the best way to handle a mistake is to first own up to it and then do better in the future. Okay, so you say it was insensitive. You're not going to say that it's wrong? So what you're saying is that it was insensitive, but you still feel the same way. You still take great pleasure in finding out that a man died. Because that's what I got from that fake apology from you. Because you did not apologize saying that I was wrong. You did not apologize by saying I did something bad. That I was not just insensitive, but that I said something downright despicable, and that I probably need to work on some things in my life if I'm going to take joy out of the death of an individual person, regardless of the political view. Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry because it takes away from the important issues facing people of Chattanooga, and I'm going to, I'm sorry because it was insensitive of me. But you still believe it based on what I'm seeing from this. Let's see the full quote here in full context. Maybe I'm missing something. It says, our city and country would be a better place if more people took responsibility. and committed to doing better in the future. As your next mayor, good luck with that, bud. I'm committed to bringing Chattanooga together by taking joy in the death of a person. How in the world? This is so much like what's going on right now with the current administration and all across the country. I want to bring people together. It is a time for unity, but if you have wrongthink, I will take pleasure in your death, is exactly what this dude has said. If you have wrongthink, and if you're a mainstream conservative, independent, whatever it might be, but you have wrongthink that goes against what I personally believe, I will take pleasure in your death. But don't worry, I'm for unity. The hypocrisy is insane. It says, I regret that this caused a distraction from the important issues facing Chattanoogans. My priorities will always be on doing what is best for the city I love so much, and nothing will take my focus away from this. From public safety to education, I've committed to making sure those issues remain the focus of the days ahead. So again, notice here how he's trying to put it back on him. So I take responsibility, but don't forget I'm running for mayor and I still need your vote. And I want to be mayor still, and I want to be, a unifying figure, but then I'm going to mock you and laugh at you when you die if you don't believe the things that I believe. Oh, okay. Yeah, good take there, Tim Kelly. It goes on to say, as the father of two, I've always shared with him the importance of owning a situation where a mistake has been made. I take full ownership of this mistake, and my hope is that you have seen through this instance that you can always count on me to level with you with everything I do. How about instead, as a father of two, as you just mentioned, why didn't you say, I should tell them, and I have told them, it is wrong to take joy in the death of a person. It's wrong to take joy in someone's death. Why isn't that the message? Oh, the message, I take responsibility is what you're saying. Sounds like a Hollywood person at this point. I take responsibility for what I said. Look at me, I'm being a man. Well, a real man would say, hey, not only was I wrong, but I was despicable. I took joy. I praised the death of a person. But you didn't apologize for that, now did you? No. You said, oh, it was insensitive of me to do it, right? I should have, mea culpa. And again, do I believe in forgiveness? Absolutely. But the fact that you gave a non-apology, and then in that apology, try to basically have it be a campaign ad, say, don't forget to vote for me because, hey, these are the issues, is despicable. It goes on, Kelly, whose party affiliation remains unconfirmed, I think we have a good idea now, as mayoral candidates do not have them listed, is not the only individual to spread vitriol and hate in a reaction to Limbaugh's death, acting as a divisive force in an increasingly polarized nation. On Wednesday, following the news of the conservative pioneer's death, left-wing Hollywood celebrities wasted no time taking to Twitter to pile on with nasty comments, ignoring any case or sense of decorum, unity, or healing. Actor Ron Perlman also chimed in declaring that Limbaugh will spend the rest of eternity with the devil. And again, that is disgusting. Now, don't get me wrong. I know for a fact that there were conservatives who said similar things about RBG. And I know that as a Catholic especially, I can look to her stance and her position and on the cases that she ruled in favor of cases like abortion. And I can understand that there are a lot of questions there. But I am not the judge. God is the ultimate judge. So even if I look to those things and point those things out, because guess what? We can be critical, right? Because I've seen some people who were critical of Rush and even in death have been critical, but have at least been respectful, who have not wished death upon him, have not said that he's gonna be burning in hell. Like there was one person, I know Tim Pula talked about, where basically her response was, I believe that firmly that he's in heaven right now and that God's talking to him about the mistakes he's made. Okay, again, it's being critical, but hey, he's in heaven in that instance, right? Versus people like Ron Perlman who say, oh, he's in hell. And again, it's disgusting when any person says that about anyone, right? It was disgusting when people said that flat out about RBG. It's just as disgusting when people say it about Rush Limbaugh. Because again, we can point out the personal flaws of a person, we can point out the moral flaws of a person, but only God can truly judge what was in a person's heart at the moment of their death. It is not our job. It is not our position to judge them. So this just breaks my heart. And again, Tim Kelly has made it very clear what position he's held in, and he will not be getting my vote. And as I said, any person that asks me about the race or anyone asks me my opinion, I'll say definitely don't vote for Tim Kelly, no matter how many posters he has, no matter what it has above his sign, because this dude is despicable. Again, He took pleasure in the death of a person and did not apologize for taking that pleasure. He apologized because he got caught. He apologized because it was politically expedient, not because it was the wrong thing to do. Speaking of wrong things to do, Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, also someone that is worthy of criticism, especially when it comes to his claimed Catholic faith. And I do say that with all sincerity, and I do say that and try to say that with as much respect as I can, because I do take my faith seriously. And so I take it seriously when someone claims to be Catholic, but then purports to support issues like abortion. It makes it very difficult for me to possibly look at anyone in a positive light when they are trying to use Catholicism as a crutch, as a visible sign, and then contradict it in such a clear way, a clear violation of the moral law as such. But of course, Joe Biden is making more mistakes than that, because he's apparently spreading more and more falsehoods about the vaccine. And this is no surprise. This is always what happens whenever any administration comes into power. The main job of any administration is essentially to always trash the previous administration. And so Joe Biden is, of course, lying about the fact that there were indeed vaccines available when he became president. He's claiming that there weren't, but by the very fact that he received vaccines back in December before he was ever president, seemed to indicate that, yeah, you know what? They were there. But of course, he's lying. He's always been caught in his lies. He had a whole town hall where he was caught with nothing but lies. He was literally saying, yeah, that's right, China has all these crazy things going on, but hey, there's cultural differences. Yeah, cultural differences explain massive genocide going on in another country. Yeah, cultural differences explain a communist takeover and one-child policy. Oh, it's just a cultural difference. They call him Beijing Biden for a reason. It goes on. On Friday, President Joe Biden traveled to the Pfizer plant in Portage, Michigan. From there, President Biden spewed lies about the previous administration's efforts to vaccinate America. After acknowledging the quick development of effective coronavirus vaccines, which, remember, is thanks to Operation Warp Speed. No matter how you feel about the vaccine, I've got a lot of questions myself still, because it was, again, a rapidly produced vaccine, and all the pharmaceutical companies have been given immunity from any effect that these vaccines might have long-term, of course, which we don't have any actual data about long-term impact. But I digress. It is still something worth noting. And it says here that Biden alleged the previous administration had no plan when it came to vaccine distribution. It says, quote, just over 4 weeks ago, America had no real plan to vaccinate most of the country. My predecessor, as my mother would say, failed to order enough vaccines, failed to mobilize an effort to administer the shots, failed to set up vaccine centers. That changed the moment we took office. Well, one of the reasons why, and there's a lot of lies in there, it's maybe because what Trump decided to do was he decided to, of course, get these vaccines mass-produced, mass-bought, and then let the states determine what would be best for them. So it came from a state perspective rather than a top-down giant government perspective. The reason why is probably also because when we know what happens when the major government, the federal government, takes control of anything. There is incompetence, there is waste of money, and that's not to say that that does not happen also on the state level, but it happens to a much less degree as well. As it goes on, as someone who received his second dose of the coronavirus vaccine while President Trump was still in office, Joe Biden should know better. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, more than 10.6 million Americans received a COVID-19 vaccine under the Trump administration. That seems to be a blatant violation of the lie that Joe Biden just said. Again, clear lie that was said there. About 1 million Americans daily were receiving doses of the vaccine when President Biden was inaugurated. So many Americans were getting vaccinated that Joe Biden was called out for this pathetic goal of administering 100 million vaccine doses during his administration's first 100 days in office. Biden's lies follow those of Vice President Kamala Harris, who claimed in a recent interview that the current administration was starting from scratch when it comes to vaccine distribution. Harris also lamented that there were no stockpile of vaccines when she and Joe took office. We know that that is factually inaccurate, because the whole point of Operation Warp Speed was that it was not only being developed, but that as it was being tested, it was being mass produced, so that when it actually got approval, it would be ready to go immediately. And that's exactly what happened. Again, regardless of anyone's view of the vaccine, that is factually what happened. It says here, on the stockpile point, how could the Trump administration stockpile recently approved vaccines that Democrats and public health experts doubted would even be in existence by Inauguration Day? Even if the Trump administration could stockpile vaccines, why would they? Isn't the goal to get vaccines into people's arms as soon as possible and not to hoard them? So I guess the main point there is to say that they didn't have this extra stockpile of vaccines. But as the point said, right, they were making the vaccines, right? They were producing them at the same time that they were going through the approval process, and then they were given directly to the states to administer to. So yes, they would be correct to say that there was no federal plan, but in the end, isn't that a good thing? I think so. It says, even Dr. Fauci has called BS on the Trump had no plan talking point. Fauci said the Biden administration is certainly not starting from scratch when it comes to the vaccines. So, Joe Biden, again, several weeks now in office, continues to lie, continues to distort, and continues to show cognitive decline, and he deserves and merits our prayers. Prayers for his conversion, prayers for his health, and prayers that he finally wise up and step away from this nonsensical point of view. Especially when we look to the effects. And now we're going to get more and more data. As the years go on, we're going to find out just how destructive these lockdowns were. We're going to always look to the numbers and say, yes, but remember all the people that died from COVID. And I'm sure those numbers will change because I'm sure more and more times we'll look and see, wait a minute, maybe there was something else going on here that should not have been directly attributed to COVID. Again, I guarantee you the numbers could either go up or go down. I can see it happening either way for that very reason. But what we will find out about in a much larger number are the amount of people who died because of the lockdowns, because of depression, anxiety, and suicide rates, and in this case, overdose rates as well. As the CDC reports, overdose deaths in the United States hit a record high during the COVID-19 pandemic. As it says, drug deaths have jumped 25% from last year. 25%. That's a incredibly high increase. Why do you think? Could it be there's a correlation between being locked down, forced to stay in your home, forced to not see your family, forced to not see your friends, forced to wear a mask and not be able to see someone's face? They've done studies, and I think I covered this on one of my social media platforms, maybe even been Gab, where the study showed that when they looked and studied grammar school kids, masks have a negative psychological impact on those kids. And it makes sense. If you can't see someone's expressions, if you can't see a smile on a daily basis, if you can't see your friends as they talk in any real capacity, when half their face, more than half their face is covered up, that's going to have and leave a psychological scar in a person. And it's also showing in adults as well. As we see again, overdose deaths have skyrocketed. It says drug overdoses in the United States reportedly hit a record high in 2020, a likely indicator that the stressors of COVID-19 pandemic, months-long lockdowns, and economic woes experienced by much of the country this year. The CDC says overdose deaths for July 2020, the last month on record, numbered 83,000 for the preceding 12-month period, roughly 25% increase from July of 2019. The federal agency warned the actual number of deaths for that period could run as high as 86,000 pending more data. Though overdoses began increasing late in 2019, just prior to the start of the pandemic, CDC data indicate that the U.S. experienced a markedly sharp uptick throughout the year for the first 7 months of 2020 overall, a spike that came after several years of flat or declining overdoses. And again, it makes sense that you would have seen an increase in 2019 because we've seen an increase in drug use. We've seen an increase in these things happening, right? We've seen an increase in things like depression and anxiety because of our country and because of our world becoming so much more hyper-focused on things like social media, right? We've already found there are direct correlations between social media and increases in anxiety and depression. So that actually makes a lot of sense. But obviously what's pointing out here is that there was a markedly high, there was a giant spike because of COVID-19. And again, it's exasperating all of it because what do you do when you're locked down? That's right. You spend more and more time on social media. You're not socializing with your friends. You're not working out because the gyms are closed, which means you're not going to stay healthy. All of these things have a major impact on all of us, have a major impact on our health, on not just our physical health, but our mental health as well. And these are the results of the lockdowns. So any governor, any mayor, regardless of party, who supported a lockdown, in my opinion, has blood on their hands. And the more and more data that comes out about this, especially when we talk about people suffering from depression and suicides, I think an argument could be made, and I hope lawsuits are brought against these mayors and governors because they have created, and in many cases forced, the issue to create an environment where things like anxiety and depression flourished and grew and became more prominent. As a teacher, I see it in my kids. I see what they're going through. I see many of them going through difficult issues. I see many more than usual suffering from anxiety levels, higher levels of sadness and depression. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see a teenager go through those types of experiences. And that's the reason why I've always been incredibly critical of the lockdowns, because at the end of the day, it's a nonpartisan issue. It's, do we believe in freedom or do we not? Do we believe that the mental health and the health of the vast majority of people, because remember, there's a 99.999% survival rate when it comes to this virus for the vast majority of people. Obviously, if you're in the older categories or you're in a pre-existing condition, then your survival rate is, 97%, if not higher? But we're going to lock things down and destroy the lives of kids. And again, it might seem small to you, but for a high school student to not have a prom is a big deal. When you're going through school and some of the things that you use in your school to look forward to give you senses of hope, whether that be a high school dance, whether that be going to a football game, for those things to either be completely removed or destroyed or limited with masks and social distancing, it has a major psychological impact on our kids. And I think that once the long-term studies of this come out, the data is going to be damning. And as I said, the people who held these lockdowns, who forced these lockdowns, in my opinion, should be held responsible, especially when the data and all the data that we had, even in the beginning, showed that lockdowns did not work, that they were not effective, and that they caused more damage economically and societally as well than not. But anyway, this is the crazy world that we're living in today, and it just gets crazier because, of course, this is something that Joe Biden did on his first day of office by basically declaring a war on women when he signed an executive order, essentially trying to say that, hey, if you are a biological male, you should be allowed to participate in women's sports, completely ignoring actual science and actual research and actual data, which obviously specifies that biologically men and women are different. And just because you're a biological male and you think psychologically that you're a woman does not make it so, especially at the biological level. Doesn't matter what kind of hormones you're taking, you are still and will always, at the biological level, be what you were born as, either male or female. As it says, President Biden released a statement Friday urging Congress to swiftly pass the Equality Act, a bill that would eliminate the legal recognition of male and female sex, cater to gender ideology, and designate protection for the unborn as pregnancy discrimination. Pregnancy discrimination. This is why he needs our prayers. The fact that he would say that to try and ban and put restrictions on abortion is somehow pregnancy discrimination is insane. It is completely insane. It says the House is expected to vote on the Equality Act next week. The legislation, which would rewrite civil rights law to include sexual orientation and gender identity as protected classes, would likely upend the national culture as Americans have it. Quote, the so-called Equality Act is legislation malpractice that turns equality on its head, said Ryan Anderson of the EPPC. It isn't drafted as a shield to protect vulnerable minorities from unjust discrimination, but as a sword to persecute those who do not embrace new sexual and gender ideologies. And this is something that we see happen a lot, right? What does this mean then for a huge portion of the American population that does not recognize transgender issues? That does not recognize someone saying, hey, biologically I'm this, but I claim to be that. Seems to be taking sides in the political spectrum, right? I know it certainly seems that way to me. And really, it's a sign of the times, right? It's a sign of our culture. It's a sign that we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in our culture. We have a lot of work to do in our society. And it starts, as I said, at that local level. Not even just with stupid mayoral candidates like Tim Kelly here, but even further, even more localized than that. It starts in our families, having conversations, trying to speak things out, trying to make sure that our kids are getting the education they need. If we find out our kids are being given nonsense, right? If this trash, if this garbage is being taught in our schools, and our kids are there, getting them out, getting them proper education, traditional education, the math and sciences, right? Something actually based in biology, rather in this psychobabble that has just been totally corrupted over the past several years. But anyway, these are all the stories that have been going on right now, and these are the ones that are important to me. So again, rest in peace to Rush Limbaugh, Tim Kelly. God have mercy on your soul for finding joy in the death of anybody. Obviously, God have mercy on Joe Biden, who is lying, blatantly lying. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And then also going so far as to continue to try and protect the horrific action of abortion, and still try to claim that he is Catholic. Still try to receive the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ. I know the bishops have come together to speak out. I know there's a couple of bishops that have been very vocal, very critical. But the fact that it's not a universal thing, in my opinion, any bishop that does not openly criticize this president, this administration for having that position, I think there's a question of whether or not that person should still be a bishop in a public sense. That's just my own thought. But anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, especially if you're watching over on Odyssey or Minds Plus. It really does mean a lot for everyone that's watching on those platforms. But again, please make sure that you watch over on Odyssey because, as I said, YouTube's already given me a warning. Lord knows they probably won't like the things I said in this video. It seems they're just going through all of my videos, trying to find one thing that I worded in some way that goes against their, quote, policy on the elections. And again, they want to silence any dissenting voices. They want to silence anyone that has a different opinion. And so if you want to continue to support me, check out Odyssey. And if you get some free crypto over there, which you can get by watching videos, interacting and stuff, consider donating to the channel over there as well. Anyway, you guys rock. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Continue to look at all news in both a critical and a cynical way. And as always, God bless.